Hello, McMills Biology. These are going to be your intro to DNA notes. These are the very first notes that we are starting with for your unit 1.5 or mitosis and meiosis. Before we can get into the unit fully, we need to have some introductory information on DNA. Now we're going to be covering DNA in more depth in unit 2, but for unit 1.5, we need a little bit of background knowledge. So your page number should look like this so far. We should have it titled Intro to DNA Notes, and then we should have this diagram pasted to the bottom of our page. Now, looking at this diagram, we're going to break it up into separate parts. The first thing we should identify is this strand right here. We're going to label this DNA. Now, you've probably heard this word before, but we are going to redefine it. Up on the top of your notes, we are going to write down this definition. So DNA. Now, the letters D, N, and A stand for deoxyribonucleic acid. This is the official name, but we will reference it as DNA from here on out. DNA is found within every living thing, and its job is to hold the genetic information for every living thing. So every living organism has DNA inside of it. That DNA is like the instruction manual or directions for how to build that living thing. So this is what tells you if you're going to have blue eyes, if you're going to have brown hair, how tall you're going to be. This is where all of that information is going to be stored. Now, DNA itself looks like this on the right-hand side. It's a long, twisted ladder. But there is a large amount of DNA in your body. In fact, there is enough DNA in all of your cells to go to the moon and back, I believe, 40 times. That is a lot of DNA. So how do we contain all of this DNA? Well, all of this DNA is held within the nucleus of the cell. We learned about the nucleus in our last unit, talking about how it holds all of our directions and is also the control center for the cell. The nucleus is where all of this DNA is stored. This is in every single cell in your body. This is not just one cell. This is in every single cell. All of this DNA is stored in each one. Now, the DNA is typically free floating, meaning a lot of the times it's just kind of like a ball of yarn, just in this strand everywhere, kind of hanging out, not really organized. However, sometimes we need this DNA to be organized, and the way it gets organized is with these very special proteins right here, these guys. These are special proteins that are gonna actually act as a spool for that DNA to wrap around. When that DNA gets spooled around and is wrapped around and starts getting folded into a nice pattern, we call this chromatin. Now we're gonna go back up again and define this. Chromatin. Chromatin is when we have that DNA, so that long strand, and the protein all wrapped together. We wrap the DNA around the protein in order to have a better organization of that DNA. All of that chromatin starts going closer and closer together until it finally condenses down into this thing right here that we call a chromosome. We'll go back up here to define chromosome. A chromosome is all of that genetic information that is held within the DNA in a bundled package. So instead of having all of that DNA just floating about, not really having any structure, we condense it into chromatin, which then condenses into that chromosome, which is how that DNA therefore becomes organized. And we are able to identify it in different ways, which we're going to talk about in our next video. So if you got anything from this video, it is that DNA is what holds all the instructions or genetic information for you. That DNA needs to get organized, and we organize it in what is called a chromosome. Move over to the next video titled Chromosomes so that you can take those notes and then reference this video again if you need any quick refreshers.